welcome to Views from the Grand East. My name is Right Worshipful Ruben Flatus. I am here with our Grand Master, J. Eugene Margroff, and this is a new, just program we're going to start to help the brethren to better know the Grand Master and members of Grand Lodge. So, Gene, how you been?
Pretty good, Ruben. Thanks for inviting me here.
Yeah.
Great to see you and talk to you again.
Yeah, we had a great conversation before the film was rolling, so you guys missed out on some quality stuff. Gene was teaching us some things. Is it okay if I just go with that? I'm just used to calling you Gene instead of saying Grandmaster all the time. But there's always a lot to learn from Gene. You've been a great mentor to me, so thank you for doing this so that the brethren can get to know you better and we can learn a lot. So I had some questions here. We did go over some of them, but let's start from the top. You had mentioned to me we're in the first quarter mile of your year as Grand Master. So my question to you is, what have you learned now being a Grand Master? You got 40 years in the craft, right? But now this is your first year as Grand Master, might be the last. What have you learned?
Well, I'll tell you, first of all, it's been a great ride. We are just past the quarter year mark into the Masonic year. And it's been great traveling around the state, meeting the brethren through various homecomings and installations. It's been great. Probably the biggest thing is adapting to, the transition from Deputy Grand Master, even from Senior Grand Warden to Deputy Grand Master was a little different too. But from Deputy Grand Master to Grand Master, the respect you get around the state. And it's just at a different level where it almost feels like it's too much. I was driving home from Atlantic City after the installation. I either called or received a total of like 20 phone calls. And everybody's like, Grandmaster, Grandmaster, Grandmaster. And when one of my brothers, who I called, all right, who's on staff with me, Alistair,
yeah.
right? And he answers his phone, he goes, "Hi, Gene." I said, "Thank you, brother." So it was, it's a lot. I understand the position, and it's part of the respect and the protocol. But there was a period of adjustment. So,
well, you're somebody I would consider you a man of the people, right? When I'm a fairly still young Freemason. When I came in, you've shown me so much. I consider you a mentor. I think there's a lot of mentors in Freemasonry, but you were definitely one of mine. And that was one of the things I've always appreciated about you was the humble just behavior, like you said. Like, thank you for just like I'm just another guy. Like you said, it's like we mentioned earlier in a previous conversation. This isn't what you might say a job, but it's really not a job. It's just a position that you're holding for this year, helping to guide. So with that said, let's move on to the next one. What has been the best experience so far this year?
Definitely the Brotherhood. I knew the Brotherhood existed, but there's been times, and the schedules can get a little hectic, but there's been times, and I talk about this pretty often, where, I could be flat on my back at home saying, "Oh, I wish I didn't have to go. I wish I didn't have to go." But I know I made the commitment. And by the time I get myself together and drive to the lodge and, or wherever I'm going, whatever event I'm going to, and I can't wait to get home. And then all of a sudden I'm with the brethren. You could feel the brotherhood in the room. And it's like an absolute second wind, and re-energized. And then I'm the last one out of the building. So it happens more often. And that's so the brotherhood aspect has been the greatest thing. We know about the brotherhood. We know what it's supposed to be. But when you see it in action and you feel it in the room, it's just a whole nother level.
Yeah. Well, as our Deputy Grandmaster says, fellowshipping, right?
Yes.
Well, I could definitely vouch for you probably being the last guy to leave. I've experienced that when we first met, so I got to know what that's like. And in your time here, so you've had just you're 40, right, for you?
Yeah, I'm actually in my 41st
year.
Yeah.
Okay. Yep. So long time in the craft, right? And next question comes into play here then. You've got this amount of time in the craft. I'm 44, so you've been in the craft almost my lifetime. What does Freemasonry mean to you after all these years?
That definitely puts it in a different perspective. So, interestingly, the reason I joined and the reason I stay now are probably two different reasons.
Okay.
I joined out of, let's say, legacy because my father was a Mason. My grandfather on my mother's side was a Mason. Granduncles and a couple others. So I wanted to join for legacy reasons. But now, as I move forward, and I got right in the line, and I served as a master within 9 years. But now, what keeps me in the craft is wanting to do better for the brothers, wanting to help the brothers, wanting to help brothers individually even, and actually the mentoring. I've had a lot of titles in my Masonic career, none of which I sought except for this most recent one. But the best title, the best thing I've ever been called other than brother is mentor. And that's where it's changed for me, and that's what I value the most, is being able to mentor.
I think that's one of the most important strengths of Freemasonry is mentoring. We were fortunate enough to now have at an Iron Lodge, most worshipful David Tucker came to do a presentation, and he was talking about some of the symbolism of Freemasonry. But one of the things that I got to talk with him downstairs about, and he did share up here, was the conversation about mentorship, right? Where you're teaching people. A lot of what I've learned has been from you and other brothers, Omar and again Dave. I had guys in my lodge like Mark and Turgrath and stuff. And that's where I realized I need to be absorbing as much as I can, and I need to be pouring out as much as I can, right? So with that said, right, when I first had a real deep conversation with you, we were at the Masonic Club of Lyndhurst.
Absolutely.
And I asked you, why do you want to be Grand Master? And you drop of a dime, because I want to instill change. And one of those changes that you're instilling right now is the new initiative for creating a committee for retention. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, so retention is kind of, there's a multifaceted retention, but the basic of it is try to resolve the non-payment of dues situation. Now, we lose 5 to 5.5% of our membership every year through non-payment of dues. So my initial goal was to how can we mitigate non-payment of dues? But then in conversation, there's so many facets, because for a brother to choose not to pay his dues is a secondary action. What's the primary action? Okay, and we talk about membership retention as candidates, and a lot of times when somebody gets elected as junior grand warden, you don't hear from them anymore. But it is we're at almost a critical point now where we keep losing 5%, 5%, 5.5%. All right, we're going to be down to only a couple thousand members in no time. So we need to take action. And I was challenged by the chairman of the membership committee, and I accepted the challenge. Wholeheartedly, I accepted the challenge. I was also challenged by the Masonic Renewal Committee. We have a lot of brothers from New Jersey that are on that committee, and that's a nationwide committee. And I said, I got it, challenge accepted. So one of my things was to start a retention committee, because if we can figure out why brothers are leaving, we can mitigate the non-payment of dues. If we want to bring back members through an amnesty program, which is coming out pretty soon.
You were talking about that. Yeah.
We got to have something for them to come back to.
Yes.
As well as we need to have something for, the members coming in now. So it's a Pandora's box of things which we try to put together and try to resolve one at a time. There's no magic bullet, but we just got to figure out the best practices and try to reduce and minimize. There's always going to be people that leave the fraternity, or either for their own volition or just because
people move, life happens.
Yep, or for non-payment of dues, there's people who just don't want to be part of us anymore, haven't paid, and you do what you need to do, because no lodge should be carrying members that aren't functional. And I mean functional by, they don't come out, they don't pay their dues, and don't want to be a part of us.
Sure.
And if you need to clean up your roster through non-payment of dues, you need to do it.
It's got to be done.
Yep.
So with that said, one of the things that I was fortunate enough is I was asked to serve on the membership committee, which you mentioned.
Yes.
Right. So Right Worshipful Art Campbell heading that up. Love him. He's been doing a lot of great work. We had some other members like Dennis Stevie, who's heading up, Glenn Kent, and some other guys. Seeing that membership, right? We're talking about the membership committee bringing brothers in, and they've done a great job at that. I know we've pushed the budget to be larger, to have more, access to that. And we're seeing great success already with the program starting again. Now we have the retention committee coming in, which I know is head by Right Worshipful Paul DiGaetano.
Yep.
My next question here on the list is, what could the brethren do to assist this goal that Grand Lodge has? What can they do to help better this? Because a lot of people don't know what these committees are doing. Right. So how can they fit into this program? Like, what can they step up right now, today, to do to help that out?
Probably the simplest thing is call a brother you haven't seen. Okay, every member who is a regular member in our fraternity has access to Grandview. Right, they have minimal access. There's very different degrees of access, but every brother has access to Grandview. You can see your lodge roster with basic contact information. And you could go down that list, and if you say, I don't know him, I haven't seen him, give him a call. Hey, how you doing, brother? I think that'll go a long way, is contacting our membership. Not to constantly go back to non-paying of dues and reasons why people leave. I'm kind of certain that maybe the processes aren't being followed and brothers aren't being contacted. I think we do a great job of contacting 20% of our members in each lodge consistently, and not a very good job of contacting the 80% we don't see.
No, we don't see.
And I think, so I think have a brother reach out for other brothers is probably the right now, the most important thing right now. What's important now? Win. Let's win the moment.
I like it. Yeah. And that's something that you definitely shared in previous conversations I've seen with the brethren, so I know it's not new. But yeah, just picking up the phone. Yep. I personally, when I get a call from somebody that maybe I haven't heard from in a while, and I'm fairly active, but it's still nice to get those calls, just to hear somebody. We got Brother Jonathan Young in the room. That's my right-hand man. We talk all the time. Brother Pete Grotsky behind the camera. Like, he calls, we have conversations. And I think that's so important. Just those little conversations, even if you don't get to see each other, but you get to share a moment. How are you doing? Someone, just like you asked John before, hey, how's your fiance? How's the father? Like, these things, they matter. And it shows that we value each other and that it makes you want to stay. I think that's a big part of it, where you're starting to lose contact. Maybe you got lost in life and you're distracted by some tribulation, and a brother just calls you. It's like, it's nice. Yeah. It's a nice touch to help bring you back.
Yeah. Brother, just imagine a scenario, right? I'll give you two scenarios.
Okay.
One is nobody contacts a brother who hasn't paid since the beginning of the year. Okay? And then all of a sudden, November comes, the lodge had their suspension vote. Somebody in the lodge says, oh, don't worry about it. We'll suspend them. They have to the end of the year to come back. Now, this brother hasn't been contacted all year. Then he sees the certified, which is supposed to be certified mail, and he says, oh, nobody calls me? They just want me for my money.
Or you got an email maybe.
Yeah. Okay. They just want me for my money. That's the general thought process. And maybe we, in that respect, inadvertently, we scared them off. Now imagine a different scenario where, I'm suggesting that by May 1st, the secretary and the worship master have dialogue to find out who hasn't paid dues and start reaching out and just small talk. And then, a few questions in or a few sentences in, say, hey, brother, I see you haven't paid your dues. Is there something we should know about? And what if the brother says, I thought I paid it, but I forgot. Okay?
Which happens.
Which happens.
Yeah.
Okay. Then fast forward to non-payment of dues balloting. And we called him. He said he was going to send it in, and he didn't. Boom. Right? We do what we need to do. And then he gets his letter. And the outlook on that letter is entirely different. Oh, that's right. I wanted to send it in and I forgot again. Let me write it out now and put it in the mail. Those two scenarios for two separate brothers can play out entirely different. So, through constant contact, I think it'll mitigate a lot of our non-payment of dues issues. Now, to get to that point, we need programs and stuff, but, in each of our lodges and keep things going.
Something that I know you've done is, and I try to at least do with you, from when I got to know you, from Nights of Fidelity, right, Sunday Fun Days,
Yep.
Where we see a lot of brothers come up, from the areas and they hang out and talk, and we're building that camaraderie and brotherhood. But I know you're a man of that word because you do pick up the phone. And so I know, like you're saying, hey, as Grand Master, like that day I was getting 20 calls. I can only imagine how crazy your phone is. But I know you're the person that reaches out to people too. You've reached out to touch base with me. I know John has mentioned that you even, would call him. So that means a lot to me as a brother because I'm just a normal guy. I'm not, I'm not an elected line or anything like that. And you would this is before it was an RW or anything. You still had that. And so that speaks a lot of what you're saying. Like just reaching out to a guy can be the difference in him leaving or choosing to stay in the ground.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So we had last thoughts, right, as the next thing, which is kind of freestyle of anything. And something hit me. Last year was most worshipful Len Vanderhorn's year, and his big thing was spreading kindness, right? And one of the things that I would say for you, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I've always felt that for you is to spread that brotherhood, right? You're really about that, and I've always felt that in your presence. I know the brothers when they come around, you're approachable. You're quick to give advice and share knowledge and stuff like that. So if you had to pick a phrase, I'm putting you on a spot, what do you think would be your phrase? His was spread kindness. Do you have one that you think that touches your heart that comes to mind? It's not that it has to be one, but I'm going to say for you, I think it's spread the brotherhood. Because that's what I see when I see you with the brethren. Like you said, you show up, you're the last guy to leave. You're there talking to everybody and spending time with everybody, and I think that's what people appreciate about you.
So probably we could say something more along the lines of live the brotherhood, enjoy the brotherhood.
I like it.
Because if we talk about kindness, it's throughout. Kindness and brotherly affection is in the installation charge, and it runs through our other degrees as well. And if we live the brotherhood and live what we're taught, then we can enjoy the brotherhood at the same time.
So you heard it here first. We're making shirts. I'm getting a piece of that, right? All right, so we'll wrap up here. I don't want to take you too much more of your time. Is there anything that you want to present to the brethren that's coming up? I know you had mentioned the game show event.
Yep. So we got quite a few things going on. We have beefsteaks and stuff going on. The most current beefsteak is actually sold out now already.
Nice.
And we're actually helping a distressed worthy brother and his family. It sold out 3 weeks ahead of schedule.
Oh, that's fantastic.
And it's basically a super tricky tray. There's going to be a live band there, and it's going to be great. And that's really one of the more important things that kind of supersedes what you just mentioned about we're also going to do a name that tune event to try to beat the Grand Master, and that'll be held.
You love that.
Yeah, that'll be held at Boiling Springs Lodge in Rutherford. And it's going to be on May 4th, approximately 3 to 7. And being up against Cinco de Mayo, we're going to hope to have a taqueria. And
nice.
it'll be BYOB.
Okay.
And it'll be more or less an at-cost event, so people just come have a great time.
I think that's been successful, where like people hey, don't have to pay more to bring booze, just bring what you want. Because some people aren't drinkers anyway.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So those are the two that we got there?
Those are the two big ones. Also, there's a couple entities we're going to try to get together. March Madness is just around the corner. Selection Sunday is, the 16th. We just came out of a fantasy football league, which I actually had the opportunity to win. I finished second last year, finished first this year.
Congratulations.
And so we're going to do a similar thing with March Madness. Everybody loves the brackets, whether you know basketball or not. And sometimes the people who don't know basketball are the ones that do better. So that flyer will be out this coming week. We talked about retention. I'm going to start an amnesty program, which will actually reach out for the non-payment of dues guys within the last 5 years and invite them back. Segue on other things. We have done an exit survey. We found out that a majority of the people who have left, sometimes they didn't know they were suspended.
That's crazy.
But 73% of those brethren, when offered with paying 1 year's dues and an invite back, they said that they would come back. They're still interested.
Yeah.
Okay. And all the responsibility lies within the lodge. What I mean by that is we don't take away any of the Constitution and laws aspects where a lodge has sovereignty over the roster. We don't say you have to take these guys back. Certainly go through and...
But it's available.
It's available.
Yeah, it's available.
It's a way of getting in touch with them
Yeah.
and see if they want to come back. You look at it now, we're not getting any money from them now. But now if we get them back on the records, we're going to start taking, the last year's dues and the current year's and just move forward.
And more importantly, get them back in the lodge.
Yep.
Right? Because it's nice when you come into a lodge and you see a lot of brothers there. I travel sometimes and you'll not a degree night and maybe there's just a good speaker. And there's 30, 40, 50, 60 guys in the room. And that's great. And then you have great collation later and fellowship. And then sometimes you go to lodges and they're having a hard time pulling quorum. So to get those guys back, especially in lodges that are suffering, that might be the breaker, right? Like the make or break, right? Where someone comes back and brings another one back, and
Specifically with Fidelity, you mentioned Sunday Fun Day, and there's a couple points in that. Sunday Fun Day, we get brothers from several different districts that come over.
Yeah.
And now versus when I joined, when I joined, every lodge was self-sufficient, and we didn't need to not only travel out of the district, we didn't even need to travel within the district. Speakers weren't speakers. We were doing degrees. We had programs, but we didn't have speakers like, the high, around the world guys. But nowadays we're more interactive throughout the districts, and so that's a definite benefit. As we got a little smaller, and we actually had a brother come back after about 7 years. He wasn't a suspended brother; he just was inactive.
Sure.
And one reason he chose not to come to lodge is because he thought it was the old white man's organization.
Sure.
Because when he first stopped in Ridgewood,
There was a lot of green beans at the coalition.
when he first stopped in that lodge, that's what he saw, and it kind of squelched him. He's like, "Hey, I was raised in this lodge. I live in Patterson, but boom, I want to come here." And then he kind of stayed away because he was shunned. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
and he happened to be my neighbor, and he was on the town council, or he was on the board of ed, and he lived around the corner from me. So I said, "No, give it a shot. Come over." And he walked in, and he says, "Wow, this place has changed. I cannot believe how diverse this lodge is." And he's been there ever since. He came back and saw something that he didn't see even 7 or 8 years ago.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, we're seeing a lot more people coming through Freemasonry. Definitely a lot more diversity. We see it here in New Jersey. I think versus a lot of other states and stuff like that. So we are a big melting pot in this area.
absolutely.
And seeing that. But one of my favorite parts about the craft is not just the diversity, but it is the mix of some older with younger guys, right?
Yep,
because we learn from each other, right? We definitely learn from each other. There's a lot to teach and so on. So that fellowshipping, the retention is something I was very passionate about. You and I have had many conversations about it, because I think we have a good program right now with the membership committee. I think they're doing a great job bringing people in. I've been a part of that. But I think it was like filling up a bucket with holes, right? And so what you're doing now is going to patch those holes, I believe, and we'll really see us come back and start to thrive.
Yep. Statistically speaking, when we talk about those things, statistically, we have as many petitioners as we do people who pass away. So the petition rate and the attrition rate are usually about the same.
Yeah.
And like I said before, 5 to 5.5% in the middle is a non-payment of dues.
That's where we're bleeding out. Yeah.
Now, our membership committee, again, Right Worshipful Brother Art Campbell is doing a great job. His whole team is doing a great job. We've added so many more petitions, right? So now are we trying to overwhelm the non-payment of dues? Let's fix the non-payment of dues. Those brothers are already here, So if we could fix that and the membership, then you're going to see exponential growth, and that's really. And it may not happen this year, but we're setting it up for the future and sustainability. So that's what it's all about.
All right. Well, Grandmaster, thank you for your time.
Oh, my pleasure.
Sharing the words of wisdom here. To the brethren that are watching, thank you for giving us time. This is our first time doing this. Gene had definitely wanted to see more social media presence. I know Right Worshipful Royce and Panion was given kind of like the media. I know previously most Worshipful Len Vanderhorn wanted to see this. And this is a direction that I personally want to see Freemasonry start to go into, is to do more video work, use our social media so that we have opportunities to talk with the Grandmasters, the elected line, anybody, just to start to get a real feel for Freemasonry. Again, we're in the north, right? And we have a lot of guys now taking over from the south, so I'm going to have to be driving a while. But, I'll definitely be talking with Bruce and Bud. I had already spoken to them. I'd like to get down there. So we'll have more information, more programs like this, and a couple other short ones like Freemasonry in a minute. We're going to have a presentation from Right Worshipful Eli Berkowitz. He went through a very hard time last year. He got injured, wasn't able to do his duties, and now he's back. And he has a great story to talk about how the brethren were there to support. So we'll have that coming up in a future series as well. So this is it. Wrap it up. Thank you for giving us your time. Again, Grandmaster, thank you for being here with us.
My pleasure.
And we'll see you soon. Thank you.